call this work session of the Pawtucket School Committee to order at 6:01. Ms. Liz, please take a roll call.
Ms. Manolo. Here. Mr. Charbonneau. Here. Ms. Grant. Here. Mr. Marino. Ms. Doobie.
Here. Please rise for pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mrs. So I have public participation here. I have one person signed up. Is anyone else signed up? Okay. I'd like to call up Mr. Dean Lancelotti.
I have visual aid.
Thank you.
Members of the school committee, my name is Dean Lancelotti. I am entering my 26th year as a business teacher at Tolman High School. I am also the business department chair as well as Tolman High School's Finance Academy director. Finally, I am entering my 15th year as the treasurer of the Pawtucket Teachers Alliance. The reason I stand before you today is because I am tired. I am tired of listening to our union president, Mr. Beaupre, tell the other officers there is a lack of communication with this administration. I am tired of hearing Mr. Beaupre explain to our executive board representatives that he has had conversations with administration and much of what he has to say falls on deaf ears. I am tired of Mr. Beaupre being dismissed as complaining. I'm tired of Mr. Beaupre being dismissed after he has had conversations with members of the school committee about the lack of collaboration with central administration experienced by himself and our members. I'm here because I am tired of Mr. Beaupre being the only voice representing over 780 members of the Pawtucket Teachers Alliance. I'm here to tell you that Mr. Beaupre is our voice. I'm here to let you know that when Mr. Beaupre comes to administration or the school committee, he has most definitely had conversation with a member or group of members who have voiced their concerns about an issue that needs to be addressed. I'm here to tell you when Mr. Beaupre comes to you and addresses an issue and attempts to work collaboratively to solve it, is because we, the members of the Pawtucket Teachers Alliance, elected him to do so, and he is representing all of us as we asked him to do as our president. I'm here to give you one small example of what happens when there is a lack of communication and collaboration with the people who actually do the work in the classrooms. As a Finance Academy director, I'm given a budget. I'm told you have X amount of money to run your academy and provide all that is needed. At the end of last year, due to an expansion of classes in the business department, and because there was some unused funds, I was told I had some additional money that could be spent. I tried to equip a new classroom with desks that was once used as a computer lab, but no longer serves that purpose and has not been used as a full classroom for some time due to its smaller size. Prior to ordering the desks, I looked up the footprint of the desks I was ordering and compared those measurements to the size of the room to make sure they would fit 28 students. Due to the configuration of the room, this would also require that I remove the teacher desk, so I ordered a podium that I could present from and adequately teach the class. I don't need to sit. I very rarely do anyway. I submitted my orders in a timely fashion, and a few weeks later, I received an email that my request had been approved by RIDE and that everything would be purchased. Towards the end of my department head days at the end of last year, there were some deliveries of these chairs to the school. I thought someone had ordered them by mistake and didn't think anything of it because I had ordered my desks, green desks, by the way, for the Finance Academy money. Monday of this week was my first day of department head days, and what did I walk into? An entire classroom of these. Not just my classroom, however. Approximately 5 or 6 classrooms. Throughout the building, I believe 150 chairs at Tolman alone. It got better. I found out that 150 were delivered to Shea as well. My question is why? Why did I spend the time to carefully research the needs of my classroom? Why did I waste my time filling out the paperwork and going online to submit what I wanted? Most importantly, why was I, the teacher, using the items in the classroom every day, not asked if these would be a feasible alternative to what I submitted to be purchased? I hear now that after the fact, because of such an uproar from others such as myself, a resolution has been decided, spending another $7,500 on top of the cost of these 300 chairs to buy locking caster wheels to prevent them from rolling. No one, and I mean no one, in the classroom wants these in their room. No one was consulted or asked or collaborated with. I have more questions now. When are these new locking wheels being delivered? After Thanksgiving? We, the teachers, have classrooms full of students on Wednesday next week. I will be facing discipline issues in my classroom at 8:10 on Wednesday morning, and those will continue until these new wheels come in. Not only are these chairs not feasible for a classroom, in my opinion, but I believe they are a safety hazard as well. I will demonstrate. See how easy that rolls? A student could easily try to go in and sit on it and fall. They roll. A student just sits down and this thing's gonna move. Okay? In addition to that, these arms are supposed to move. I'm a pretty strong guy. Okay? You know, it takes a lot. The kids are gonna be playing bumper cars in the classroom at 8:10. Additionally, when the new wheels come in, who's going to install them? I would assume the custodial staff will be tasked to do so. Don't they have better things to be doing? Will this cause them to go on overtime? Even if the wheels make it on time, my colleagues and I are now stuck with these unwanted items in our classrooms. I ordered what I wanted because I took the time to research it. It was durable and would last a long time. Like I said at the beginning, this is one example. I am sure if you spoke to Mr. Beaupre or our members and actually listened, you would find this happens in all aspects of the decision-making process here in Pawtucket with this administration. Curriculum adoption, instructional practices, supplies and materials, equipment. There are supposed to be collaborative committees in which the Alliance is represented, but many times this is a formality to make it look good, and the decisions have already been made by administration. Members of the school committee, I am tired. I am tired of our elected union president not being viewed as a professional trying to collaborate for the betterment of this district. Instead, it is clear this administration views it as Ron complaining again, instead of listening to our voices. Now it is indisputable. It's not just Ron. Now you've heard from someone else. Thank you for your time.
You may ask a clarifying question, yes.
Mr. Lancelotti,
Yeah,
what is the weight capacity on those chairs?
I have no idea. I don't have any information. I could not tell you.
Can we find the weight capacity? We have some
I'll
big
tell you
chairs
right
that
now,
are
though.
gonna be sitting in them.
If I lean on this thing right here, okay, there's another one. That's not very good. There's multiple, you step on the bottom of this thing and it bends the plastic. I can just see somebody cracking these things. They're not gonna last, I can guarantee you.
Thank you. We'll move on to approval of previous meeting minutes, 7/28/22. Been a motion approved by Ms. Grant, it's been seconded by Mr. Marino. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries 6-0. We'll move on to old business discussion action items, update on $750,000 allocation from capital reserve. Ms. Devine or Dr. McWilliams? I'm not sure. Okay. Good evening.
At the last school committee meeting, the committee voted to approve an allocation of $750,000 for classroom supplies, classroom and office furniture, including chairs and PSD clothing. So at that meeting, it was tasked for me to come up with a spending plan based on student enrollment, and there was a few items that were estimated to take off the top. So the sheet before you breaks that down. The 750 allocation of the winter gear for the maintenance crew for coats, hats, and gloves is $17,000. PSD logo wear, and these are just estimates. These would have to be bid or purchased off the MPA, and then once again, the contracts go up before the school committee. An estimation of PSD logo wear or optional for all staff, $25,000, and that would consist of some sort of polo or a long sleeve shirt, not a uniform, not required. Just, you know, we hear sometimes people say, oh, I like that shirt. And some of the schools, they actually do fundraisers for students, and they order some, and they usually have the individual school, but not just PSD on it. In addition, there was an ask for replacement chairs for all staff if the employee desired so. So that information is being collected as we speak. It was sent out to the administrators previously, and first efforts were about what chairs were broken or unsafe, and now it's for everybody who needs a new chair and desires one. That estimate is about $175,000. After that, the amount of money that is left on the 750 is $533,000. And then using the most recent enrollment that was provided to me, it was about 2 weeks ago. And it says its student enrollment was 7718. On the bottom of the sheet, I note that we'll run the enrollment before these purchases take place, but then it's allocated based on the student enrollment at each school, splitting out the various allocations to the right.
You mentioned that a letter went out to the administrators in regards to the desks and the chairs. So a letter went out, I'm assuming, to the principals, correct? Of each
Yes.
school.
It was to the chairs for all of the district administration. It went out for the chairs.
Right. And what did this letter state? Because where I'm concerned is, especially after Mr. Lancelotti shared the feelings on these chairs, what I'm concerned about is people fit right in different types of chairs. And I think if we are going to spend this type of money, then we need to make sure that each individual building is taking care of their own, meaning that the principal would control it. And then even if a teacher left and went to a different school, they would take the chair with them, not take the chair in the new room. Because I would think, because I see my husband going into Staples, you know, he'll sit in every chair, you know, until he finds one he likes. And like I said, this is a lot of money to spend. So I think we have to make sure that we have our ducks in a row on the way this is going to take place. I realize we have a lot of money coming into this district at this time, but we shouldn't be wasting it. We should be using this money very carefully. I understand even in regards to the supplies, if people over order, but we also have to remember that we have a lot of school buildings that do not have a lot of storage. Great example was all the curriculum. that was in this room that I said had to be moved. It was driving me crazy. But we also have school buildings that don't have air conditioning. So if you have 5,000 packets of crayons, well, so we need to make sure that we stay on top of this and someone is responsible and runs this the right way. Because, we can still spend this money up to next September. So each school can use the money next year in case they decide. But I think we really need some kind of guidelines to guide.
Sure.
And to make sure that this is done properly.
Sure. So in the building, there was one thought that, we saw a chair and we got a sample. But the chair would not be fit for everyone. So we had thought, okay, each school could get recommended chairs and then we could determine from there. But again, it has to be the person who's comfortable. For instance, myself, even though it's not ergonomically correct, the way I sit in my chair, and I don't really leave my office too often, is I kind of sit higher than I really should. So the chair, the sample that we got is actually probably a chair that's probably better for me for the ergonomics. And I sat in it for a day and it, worked out, but it's not going to be somebody who's much taller than I am because again, when you sit, my feet touch the floor, but my knees are bent at a certain level and they say it's supposed to be even. So again, every chair is going to be different for somebody, but we figured that we would have some selections and maybe they could make some suggestions and then we could have people decide or determine what they want. I mean, I don't think everyone would want to go out to Staples, like I do too, in my home office. We go out and we do the same thing, sit in every chair and then you can't decide and then you leave there buying nothing. So I think that we will have some sort of mechanism in place to ensure that each principal gives the employees a chance to determine, a chair from a sample. I mean, we don't want to have a million different chairs either, but maybe
We also don't want to order chairs
that people
are
aren't
not
going to
gonna
use. Correct,
and then have another one re-ordered for it.
correct,
So I think
absolutely.
we need to make sure
Well-
whether it's 5 chairs you pick or whatever, but we need to have a system
Mhm.
in regards to it. And we have to make sure that, like I said, we don't want waste.
Absolutely, absolutely. But you're right. We have a number of chairs that, we can get some input from the administrators, from the buildings or, teachers, non-certified staff who wants to put a sample in. And then again, WB Mason has some on their pick list that was off an MPA. This other one was on an MPA, the sample one. And I think Dr. Andre took it downstairs to his staff and they actually used it for the past couple days. And he said that each of the people in his office that wanted a chair liked that chair. So again, I mean, we certainly can call the vendor once we find out a few chairs and get a few samples in. But we'll certainly ensure that they have their choice of a pick from a group.
Ms. Bonello and then Mr. Charbonneau.
So a couple of questions. We'll stick with chairs for now. But the schools that have used their school budgets to purchase chairs in the last year or so, so they've used a budget that people use for other things on purchasing chairs. So there's no benefit being given to that school? Because
Do you mean like if, one of the schools ordered their clerk a new chair, chances are the clerk picked it out. So, I mean, do we want to get her another chair? I don't think she's going to want one.
Right, no, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, okay, so
Yeah.
it's, principal orders 20 chairs or 30 chairs
Mhm.
for their staff, and it comes out of their budget.
Mhm.
So now we're paying for everything.
Right, well, yeah,
They-
I mean, again, it depends on when they bought it. Excuse me. I don't know that there's been too many, and again, please don't quote me on this, I'm not 100%
No,
sure
I'm
because there's so
saying
many
as far
orders.
as reimbursement, it's like,
Well, it's out of their budget and last year's closed, so I think it's I will probably keep. So you're gonna find that. I don't know how we would track whether someone got a chair. I think we would be spending more time trying to figure that out. I think the initiative of if you want a chair, you get a chair is a great idea. I just don't know how we track if a chair was, 2 years ago? If they don't want one, they don't want one.
Okay. The second question is the amount indicated for the schools
Mhm.
for the purchase of supplies. That's in addition to the bulk supplies that have already been sent to the schools, all the crayons, all the everything.
Yeah, this is strictly, this number right here, this number right here is strictly the number from the initiative of the 750. And again, I just put this together because I was tasked with, hey, give a plan. If somebody has another way, I'm happy. This was just how I was thinking. And I'm open to, of course, you guys, whatever your suggestion is or changes, I'm happy to.
Oh, no, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure that it wasn't gonna be reduced.
No, this is
by
exactly the way.
supplies already sent.
The way you voted, this money hasn't been touched yet. Nothing has been touched.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This was my item, and I appreciate the committee's support on this, and I don't want to overcomplicate it, but my vision of this was that I think if you take the $775, it comes out to about $1,200 per employee, teacher, non-cert.
Yeah, you have to do 1,000 employees. It's about 1,000 employees, so.
Okay, so
It would be the 750.
So can we set it? I mean, the chairs shouldn't, I don't think we should overcomplicate this. The chairs should be, the administrator at the building gets together with the union rep from the building, the non-certified union rep from the building. They sit down, they pick out 6, and they offer those chairs to everybody in the building. And they get to pick one of those 6, and they're all comparatively priced, so somebody's not buying a $1,000 chair and a $200 chair. It shouldn't be that, this wasn't meant to be a difficult or heavy lift. It was something to supplement our teachers so they don't have to go in their pocket more than they already do to buy supplies. And when the conversation came up about chairs, it seemed like a natural part of it.
Right, and those are just estimates. Any money so let's just say the chairs come in and this is my thinking, that if the chair, again, you can't have everyone pick out their own hat and coat. It has to be a bucket of money because we have to bid that. But let's just say the chairs, let's take that because that's the biggest number next. The chairs of 175, let's just say only 75,000 gets used on chairs, then that change will funnel down to the different schools. So we don't have to do it by student, we can do it by employee. I can change that figure.
But this should be an opportunity for the administrator of the building to sit with the union rep of the building on both
Correct.
sides, the non-certified union rep to have the conversation and then present something to the staff.
Correct.
That should be a win for everybody.
Right, correct. So if you read the bullets on the bottom, each building will enter their own school's requisitions following the purchasing requirements as appropriate. That was the
Right.
idea.
No, I just want to be clear that
Yeah.
I don't want the administrators picking out chairs
Yep,
and
that's
this
fine.
is what you get and that's it. I
Right,
want
that's
it
what
to
we said, the
be-
administrators at the school can work with whoever, and then they can pick a few chairs.
Okay.
Because you don't want to have 20 different chairs at a school, or vice versa, but that's why I put down in green, each building will enter their own.
Yeah.
And certainly, I think I had to take out the bucket, I can change these, instead of student enrollment, I'll use employee per building. And we'll do it that way. And then what will happen is one, the coat and the hats, again, that's for, the custodial and the maintenance staff, just because that's who's outside doing the shoveling and the snow blowing and those things. So that's a small amount of 17,000. And then the logo wear is just another flat fee. The chair was meant to be, I certainly can take the 175, drop it into the 533, and then allocate it by school, and then they can do however they choose.
Yeah, and I think the custodian budget too should be, we should get, the best outerwear that we possibly can.
Absolutely.
Have it branded with the PSD logo. And
Absolutely.
so when parents pull up and they see somebody outside on the grounds, they know it's
Correct.
a member of the.
Correct, absolutely.
Alright.
So what I'll do is, so are you asking that I change it from student enrollment in the school, to teacher, or employee population? And again, that was mainly because of, again, I'm just figuring every student that's in the building is an equal number share of, if you have, so many teachers in a building, so many TAs, so many custodians.
Melissa, you're far better at this stuff than I am. I just ask that we don't overcomplicate it and that
Sure.
we involve people at the building level.
Absolutely, got it.
Thank you.
Okay, so, as I'm looking at the agenda, we're on update on $750,000 allocation from capital reserve. The next item is approval of $750,000 spend plan of PSD. So we're discussing this. The next item would be if we want to make a motion to move forward with this plan.
Second.
Then a motion to approve by Mr. Charbonneau, then seconded by Mr. Moreno. Is there any further discussion on this? Ms. Manolo?
Last week when we made a motion, it had stipulations on how we were doing it. So if we're changing that stipulation, we need to have the correct wording this week.
I don't think we're changing, I think we're doing this, what's in front of us, essentially, yeah. Yes.
Would you like me to switch it to per employee or leave it at students enrollment? However you want, but it will go, everything will go down to the building level.
What Jay's saying, it should be per employee. So that way the teachers can benefit and get the stipend for
So I
supplies.
withdraw my original motion. I'll make a motion to amend the approval of the $750,000 spend to be by employee,
Okay,
employee per school versus student enrollment.
Second.
Then a motion by Mr. Charbonneau to adopt the plan in front of us with the amendment of per employee, then seconded by Ms. Manolo. Is there any further discussion on this? So will you please take a roll call?
Ms. Manolo,
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau,
Yes.
Ms. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Larby,
Yes.
Mr. Marino, Ms. Doobie.
Yes. Motion carries 6-0. The next item is school committee policy, second passage, GDGB, substitute teacher policy. I can pass this over to Mr. Larby that Ms. Manolo. Did I skip one?
We have to vote on the motion as amended.
There was just one motion. It wasn't, Mr. Charbonneau withdrew his original motion and then made a motion to pass with the change.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No problem. Okay, this is our second passage. Mr. Larby, I don't think any changes were made from the first passage. That was done last week, but I can pass over to you.
Before you today is for a second passage, we have policy GDGB, the substitute teacher policy. This is just to ensure that we keep up our substitute rates that we created during COVID and to stay competitive with our peers.
Motion approved.
So the motion to approve the second passage by Mr. Charbonneau, seconded by Ms. Grant and Ms. Manolo. Any discussion on the second passage? Ms. Littley, please take a roll call.
Ms. Manolo,
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau,
Yes.
Ms. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Larby,
Yes.
Mr. Marino, Ms. Doobie.
Yes. The motion carries 6-0. Now we're on new business discussion action items, overview of district strategic goals for 2022-2023 school year. Dr. Burns.
good evening, everyone. So I'd like to ask the priority leads for our strategic goals to just come to the podium as we share where we're headed for the next year. I would like to just quickly review our vision, which is continuously improving educational excellence and global citizenship for all, while providing compassion, supporting collaboration, and developing courage. And our mission is Pawtucket schools provide high quality, engaging, and rigorous academic opportunities by fostering culturally competent and equitable learning environments for all students and families within our community. This is briefly a timeline of where we have been going over the past several years. And you will see that it started when I actually stepped in as interim superintendent. We left off in 2019, and we started in 2020 with a new strategic plan. Strategic plans generally go 3 to 5 years, and we are now in the process of looking at building a new strategic plan. And what I will say This year, we've had close to 100 staff involved in our strategic planning. Many of those people are sitting in the audience. It includes union representation, includes teachers, teaching assistants, custodians, parents, and community partners. Our strategic priorities are the same as when you think about strategic planning, you want to ensure that you give yourself broad categories or priorities so that you're not trying to change something year after year after year. So for the past few years, our strategic priorities are strong foundations, and this aligns to the Rhode Island Department of Education strategic plan, which is equity and engaged communities. And the second is shared responsibilities and accountability, which also aligns to RIDE's excellence in learning, and globally competent citizens, which aligns to RIDE's world-class talent, and systems improvement, which aligns to governance structures from RIDE. And you will see that we're innovating implementation, and it goes to 2027 as we move forward because of the COVID year. The previous 2 years, although we had goals and a strategic plan, we actually were focused more on back to school. So a lot of the communication came out of back to school. As we move forward, part of an addendum to the strategic plan will be a communication plan that we're in the process of drafting and working on. And so at the end, you will see that there'll be a focus area on that. The main components of a strategic plan have to align to a RIDE's Accountability Act. And this gives you an overview. It's just a picture of some of the changes that the Educational Accountability Act have filtered down to the schools. So when we think about the Educational Accountability Act, it aligns to ESSA, which is the Every Student Succeed Act, which is from the federal government. And out of that comes down to the RIDE Accountability Act, which provides more accountability at school level, so site-based management. And as we move forward, school improvement teams, I know I heard a little bit about collaboration, and Mr. Charbonneau was talking about chairs and things like that. As we move forward into this year, it's critically important that school improvement teams will be making the majority, along with administration, decisions in the schools. And I think that's going to have a very, very positive effect on the environment. It's what we call site-based management. Strategic planning, like I said, is normally a 3-year plan. We are now, because of the previous COVID years, looking at a plan that stretches out to 2027. So the goals that we will be presenting to you tonight are actually just for the next school year. And then our team is meeting again. We'll be meeting throughout the year to look at the next following years and also to work on a communication plan. One of the changes with the Educational Accountability Act is that everything that we do is now going to be tracked in a DAS, that's a data assessment system. This is going to be a system that is rolling out right now with RIDE. It's in the pilot program, and Pawtucket is one of the communities that is in the pilot program with RIDE. So we are in the process, and you'll see as we go forward, of putting our goals into a SMART plus E format, which I will go over later. And it will go into this district assessment system that all districts in the state of Rhode Island will use, and it will be public, and it will filter down all of the goals, but not only that, programs and procedures that are tied to those goals, and it will be reported out publicly, and it will also go right down to the budget lines in the UCOA. These are the team leads of our priority areas who have stepped up to lead these priority areas and are also meeting with a subset of those teams, collective of all stakeholders. So Strong Foundations is led by Kim McCahey, our curriculum director. Shared Responsibilities and Accountability is led by Sarah Kudamash, our Chief Teaching and Learning Officer. Globally Competent Citizens is led by Ricardo Pimentel, our CTE Director and Unified Arts Director. And Systems Improvement, Linda Giffen. Strong Foundations, I'm going to ask Kim to come up.
Hi, good evening. On the screen and on the papers that you do have, it does list the categories that are in Strong Foundations. But basically, when you think about strong foundations, it's about developing a cohesive system of educational excellence for all of our students, pre-K through 12. And it includes not only the academic content, but also important social emotional learning, and also addressing student proficiency and attendance. If you go to the next slide, the committee that I work with amended the goals for this coming school year to reflect what's on the screen, but I thought it might be helpful first if I give you some acronym assistance. SEL, social emotional learning, and HQCM is high quality curriculum materials. And so basically the SEL goal, what they're looking for is common language and unified procedures across the district. For the high quality curriculum materials, last year we were in implementation, now we're fine tuning and having teachers deepen their understanding of those and learning and sharing from each other. And then for early childhood, getting that connection between what's happening in our pre-K and our K through 2 programs. So those are the goals for this year for Strong Foundations.
Shared responsibilities and accountability. Sarah, would you please come up? Thank you. Good evening. Shared responsibility and accountability reflect several key levers for our ongoing work of establishing clear procedures for the district improvement and accountability infrastructure. Before you on the screen, you'll see some bulleted areas that I'll explain a bit further. Leadership and talent development align with our federal non-regulatory guidance in Title II. State accountability systems reflect ever-changing metrics due to pandemic and endemic response. Authentic evidence is there to substantiate improved practice. Climate, culture, and community partnerships is to cast our service delivery net wider, grounded in the organization's mission, vision, and values. And the communication subsection is the foundation for internal and external needs in the endemic phase of our planning cycle. As we move into the next slide, the goals before you will be explained here. The committee responsible for this section amended goals to reflect the following. Goal 1 seeks to expand professional learning opportunities for capacity building for our instructional leaders at schools and central office. Goal 2 seeks to refine and provide new monitoring processes for data-driven implementation of service, ensuring our students receive what they need nimbly. Goal 3 seeks to expand professional learning that focuses on instructional strategies for student growth, achievement, and engagement at the Tier 1 level. This is mirrored in several narrative implementation plans and through our work with RIDE's district support program, Harvard Proving Ground, and instruction partners. Goal 4 seeks to expand training opportunities for cultural relevance and equity dialogues for all levels of staff. And Goal 5 seeks to expand partnerships that drive the development work forward and supports our community and homeschool connections with basic needs and direct services. On this next slide, we take a look at the PSD Strategic Plan Communication subsection that was drafted in 2019 as we transitioned from one strategic plan into our current model. This work was quickly paused as we entered into the pandemic and regrouped teams in subcommittees for the back-to-school reopening plan work. The two strategic plan subcommittees that are leading this work are Shared Responsibility and Accountability and Systems Improvement. All strategic planning members are participating in the current editing and amending of internal and external goals.
And Mr. Pimentel will come up and speak on globally competent citizens.
Good evening. The slide before you is the focus of our priority sector for globally competent citizens. The focus is on personalized learning, such as the individualized learning plans, the ILPs, that we have in place for our students in grades 6 through 12. Career and technical education programs at Shea, Tolman, and JMW. This year, we're running 16 CTE programs district-wide. career exploration, primarily in the middle schools with Youth Science and Choices 360. Work-based learning opportunities such as internships, job shadowing, and service learning projects. Concurrent and dual enrollment opportunities for our students with CCRI, Rhode Island College, URI, New England Tech, and Roger Williams University. All Course Network, ACN, through the Department of Education, and Prepare RI. And then the CTE endorsement, Commissioner's Seal, Diploma Plus, and Seal of Biliteracy upon completion of programs for students when they graduate. The next slide demonstrates the committee working on globally competent citizens, priority sector. Our committee amended the following goals for this year. So goal 1 is to develop work-based learning opportunities such as internships and field experiences that promote awareness of all of our CTE sectors. We'll work together with our CTE teachers and programs to develop these work-based learning opportunities. Goal 2 is to structure work-based learning opportunities within our district for all students, connecting them to career exploration and career readiness. Our focus is not just for students in CTE programs. We want all students, regardless of their CTE affiliation, to have the opportunity to partake in work-based learning opportunities and explore different careers and be career ready should college not be an option for them. The third goal is to build relationships with community and industry partners for students to integrate and contribute locally and globally to become competent citizens. We want our students to have relationships with community sectors so they can give back to their community. Goal 4 is to design a phased communication, implementation, and branding plan for our CTE programs. Getting information out there to families, our families in Pawtucket, and a branding plan of our CTE programs is of utmost importance. And goal 5, continually develop and expand a pipeline between our middle schools and our CTE programs. We will do this through Project Lead the Way courses, which we have in place, enrichment programs, as well as after-school programs. And the final goal is recruiting students to dual language programs and offering advanced language coursework at the middle school to develop and support our bilingual students. Students who learn second and third language from a young age are able to develop communication skills and a higher degree of literacy, and we want to strengthen those connections. Thank you.
Dr. Linda Giffen on systems improvement.
The focus of the School Systems Improvement Committee's priority includes enhancing the full school environment, which would be the management systems, the facilities, and encompassing a positive school climate. And so the committee's amended goals for this year included continue the development of a comprehensive employee handbook, which is already in progress, continuing the investment into our safe school environments, and that's just not the facilities and actual structures. That would be offering any type of programs that we have, for example, the ALICE training that has been discussed. Adopting a plan and integrating a data management systems. Revising, updating, and maintaining the district's website. We have a new website. We want to make sure we reach out to stakeholders and make any adjustments and modifications that we receive from their input. Continuing the investment to improve the school facilities, which we have been doing a lot of in the recently. Delineating roles and responsibilities to communicate and disseminate information to all stakeholders, which is basically so that everybody understands where they could go for questions. We had the union vice presidents in our committee, and that was something that they brought up, that people don't necessarily know who to speak to. Increasing community relationships in all schools, not just our community schools, and continuing to implement and support strong financial transparency in accordance with our UCOLA with all stakeholders.
Thank you. So our next steps, we have work sessions coming up in the fall, and we'll be looking at taking our goals, turning them into SMART plus E goals, which means that they'll be specific, they'll be measurable, they'll be attainable, relevant, and timely, and then equitable. So all the goals that we're looking at, we want to make sure that we have equity across our district. And in addition, like I said, we should have, in a short period of time, a district communication plan that we will be rolling out. And that's it.
Mr. Charbonneau.
So, Superintendent, a couple of things. One is, I'm just curious why Dr. Gifford wasn't on the first team, why she didn't switch positions with Ms. McCarthy on the,
Strong foundations.
right, if we're looking at pre-K, early childhood, the rationale for the placement of the team.
So first of all, the teams were self-selected. It's, basically, these are our goals and who would like to lead the initiative. So it's not so much about a person as about the work. And I will say that the teams do work together very, tightly and closely. And to be honest with you, strong foundations, shared responsibilities, and systems improvement all, go together. Like you see CTE programs and globally competent citizens is kind of, more of an outlier, but it wasn't like, you're assigned this particular position. It was basically, who would like to be the cheerleader to take up and, really schedule the meetings. It's basically about scheduling the meetings and just leading that session of stakeholders who are coming together.
And on the SMART goals,
Mhm.
2022 through 2023, when are we gonna get the goals? I'm reading a lot about there's a communication plan, develop a communication. When are we gonna see the actual, this is our communication plan, this is our.
So these are the goals that we just, after each priority area, what they share with you is that the teams, the stakeholders revise those goals. So those are the goals for those areas. And then we will be working with putting these into that format in the pilot program with RIDE. So by the end of, so in other words, we're starting like now, working on these goals.
Right, but so globally competent citizens, and maybe Mr. Pimentel, build relationships with community and industry partners for students to integrate and contribute locally, globally, become competent citizens. When are we gonna do that? When are we reaching out to, because my assumption was we should already be doing some of this stuff. And the fact that we're looking as a goal to build the relationships, we should have the relationships and we should be building on them.
That's correct. We do have many relationships, but when you think about expanding relationships and building upon it, that's correct.
So should we expect the time that everybody comes back to us and says, here's the new community relationships and partnerships we've made based off our strategy? Because
yes.
And I don't want anybody to take this the wrong way, but I'm tired of seeing colorful PowerPoints that say a lot of good things, but that's not necessarily some of the feedback that we're getting. So we've got to start to do less of this and more of, here's what we're doing, or at least dumb it down for me so that I'm aware of we're making progress in the right direction.
Yes, I hear what you're saying. So what you're speaking to is a SMART goal. What you're talking about is you want to see that in a SMART format with evidence.
Right, like I don't want it to take the entire school year to come back with SMART goals, and then next year we start to implement those SMART goals, or God forbid, we change the goals and amend them and do something else. I want to see,
Okay.
Here's the plan, here's what we're going to do, and here's the progress we're making so far.
We can do that, yes.
And I just want to clarify, so I feel like SMART goals is tossed around a lot in the education world and not necessarily, something that is an acronym that everyone might know, but that I agree that measurable aspect, which is part of SMART goals, which means that if it says build relationships, how are we measuring that we built those relationships? Are we saying, if we have 10 new community partners, that's where we want to be? And then when is the check-in to say, okay, do we have 10 new community partners? Because I think, as Mr. Charbonneau was saying, they're very squishy, and they could be interpreted as one community partner is where we want it to be, or we strengthened our one relationship with this one community partner. So I think that that's what you are getting to, Mr. Charbonneau? Yeah, okay. Ms. Manolo and then Ms. Grant.
So, all of the information that you're going to bring back to us takes a lot more reporting. And I would presume that that reporting is coming out of our schools. And I've been told by a number of people that there's a huge amount of reporting already being done that they're not able to keep up with. So are we using some of our funds to give them additional support?
We need, we need this information, we need this accountability, and it does require time, and it does take time outside of the regular school day. And so you're asking for a specific format?
Well, no, but I'm saying, okay, I'm a principal and I have accountability in 40 different areas that have to be done on a timeline, and they have to be delivered at the end of the day or on a daily basis, the end of the week. But all of this reporting, collating all the information from all of my principals and getting it into the report for you and scanning everything in so it can be uploaded to your platform, takes a lot of time. And what I'm hearing is our principals are no longer able to interact with their employees and the students. And in order to do that, that's why they're principals, because they love the kids and that's their job, and the management that goes along with it. But when you give them so much paperwork, they can't do their job. They just become a paper pusher. And what I'm asking is, are you going to put more requirements on them to complete your SMART goals?
So the thing is, each particular school has a school improvement team and a school improvement plan. So RIDE has a strategic plan. School departments as a district have a strategic plan. We just went through those goals. And then that trickles down to each individual school that has their site-based responsibilities in their responsibilities for school improvement. We would be collecting that data for a district accountability, but they're collecting it for their site. There's a principal that is responsible for their site, so they're responsible for their goals. So each individual school has a school improvement plan that they will need to be responsible for, right?
And I understand that, but are you weighing the amount of time that RIDE has, the orders that RIDE has passed down, that they have to collect this information to become accountable?
Right.
So if it's taking them 4 and 5 hours a day to put all of the paperwork together, that's not time they're spending with their teachers in the classrooms with the kids.
Yeah, maybe
That's what I'm trying to say.
yeah,
Are
maybe
they
I can
going to get more support?
Principals can get more support.
Yes.
I'll work on
I think what I'm concerned about is it doesn't state how we're gonna get here. Kind of like Mr. Charbonneau stated, I was under the impression the majority of this stuff we were to be working on already.
And we are, but we're enhancing it.
But it doesn't share like how we get here. So, you know, what's the plan to get to these plans? What's the plan to develop a comprehensive employee handbook? Who's gonna work on that? Like, I think we're given just like kind of like the minimum, and then but I think we need to know how we're gonna get here, because like I said, this is stuff really that should continuously be working on, updated. And I think I'm disappointed in the lack of, there's a lot of words here, but there's no actually how we're gonna, what's the action of
So,
it?
yeah, so let's take the staff employee handbook, for example. So that is already in process in a draft form and there's a team working.
Okay, so wouldn't you think you guys would share with us how we're gonna get these things done?
So, and that is part of putting that into a specific, measurable, attainable, and relevant and timely goal, which we will be doing. We will bring those back.
And it's essentially separate.
Well,
No,
I
keep
think,
going.
again, I agree with Mr. Charbonneau. I think, I think we need to be more realistic and, kind of share the real facts and, maybe dumb it down, like you said. But this really doesn't say a lot to me. Last year it was said, we're gonna get a new website, we're gonna work on a new website, now we're gonna work on a new website. A few years ago when Lisa Fonseca was here, there was a meeting and I was invited to a meeting where we were working on making relationships with community members. Are we continuing that? How are we continuing that? I think the proof is in the details. And we don't get the details from you guys on that.
Okay, so
We just get like this top layer and we don't get to see or realize what's inside of it. Who's actually working on these things? Who's involved in these things? We keep hearing, all these different teams. Who are these actual people on these teams? Maybe they should have been the people who are here tonight to be introduced to us, because that's what we seem to always go back to. Who are these people?
yeah, we have a list of, and we're required to, so I'd like to speak to a few things. So we're required to list all the people that are on the team. So we have a list of that, close to 100 people, and they do include community partners. You made reference to a few years ago, someone was here and we heard about community partners. Well, I welcome you to come on August 27th, which is Saturday, when we have a backpack giveaway. And then we have an afternoon of community partnership. We're gonna have community partners there. We've been doing this now for this past year, where we have representatives of community partners. So that's, no, but you were looking for
I think
examples.
that's great.
Just finish your statement before asking another question. So
So I was just going to say that the proof is in the pudding, as it was stated, and looking for details and looking for evidence. So I think that I was using that as an example, looking for evidence for community partners. We have built strengthening community partners, and we have events where community partners are represented in our sharing with our families. I will use a perfect example at Slater Middle School today when they had the Jump Start in Boys Town. One of our community partners presented to the parents and the families, and then watching the interaction of what happened there that has never happened before. And I could go on and on of the various community partners that we use. So I was just using that as an example.
But what I'm saying is, why wasn't that shared in this? Why did we have to ask
So the
and
level-
pull it out of you guys?
No, so the level, so, and I understand what you're saying, it's very, and you will have, there will be a document that will be a full document. This is an overview of the goals for 22, 23, but I do understand what you're saying, because it's, as educators, we're in it every day. And if you're not an educator, you're not seeing the details, right? And so I do appreciate that, and we will definitely consider that.
But as a non-educator, as a superintendent, you're supposed to bring this to me. You're supposed to bring this to me for me to buy into it.
Mhm.
And if you don't give me the facts or what's going on, then I can't put that together.
Right.
Or I have to do all the pieces to get together. And I shouldn't have to. That's what these type of presentations are for. You should be providing us the information on how we're going to get from A to Z and who's involved to get us from A to Z.
We can certainly do that.
And we shouldn't have to, continuously guess, or, it should be brought to us, and that should be part of the plan. like Mr. Charbonneau said, the words are great, but how are we gonna get there? Or are we there? And if we are there already, then how are we gonna expand on it? And those are the details that are not included in these presentations.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. And this was an overview. If you looked at the title again, it was an overview of the district goals. And what you're looking for is a very detailed analysis with data, which we'd be happy to do that. Probably need quite a bit more time, but we'll be happy to do that.
I would think, let me just ask, if you have these goals, I would think you'd have the data behind it.
We do.
To get to it. So then it shouldn't take that long to get it, correct?
No,
Okay,
Yeah.
you said it might take a while to get.
no, I meant
So-
take so if we start going through the, the details, it would take more time within a meeting to break down each goal and the supportive documentation behind it and the, the evidence. But we could certainly do that.
Yeah, like, I don't want it to be like a big library, but, if you said something about working with community partners, where we're holding a job fair, at Jenks or something like that, things like that, just an explanation of how you're going to reach each one of these particular goals, because it doesn't tell us
I
anything,
understand.
So the system, the RIDE system that we are
In a
been selected to pilot, what were the districts?
Not sure, there's 4 in the districts,
There's
yeah,
4 other districts, thank you. Newport, Cranston, Warwick,
in Pawtucket.
and Benton.
Okay, so this is going to be accessible to everybody, so obviously the school committee, but to all people, and in it, it will be the specific goal, and then all of this information as to how the goal is going to be achieved.
Yes.
So that goes into that system.
Mhm.
And then in that system is also the progress towards that goal.
Tied to funding.
Tied to, so in other words, like, so for.
Let's
One
use
you're
an example,
talking
leadership,
So-
leadership development.
Oh, I was gonna just pick up one that was already said. So for instance, the handbook, it would say, here's a specific goal and the timeline for when it is going to be completed. Here is the money that has been allocated to it, if there was money allocated to it. And then in that system, it will essentially have like a check mark, like done. Is that how it works?
Yeah.
If I may, thank you so much.
Been going to the training.
I'm
for
so
the
sorry,
system.
I've got my folks over here who are working so diligently with us. I just want to acknowledge that what you're describing is essentially the phased implementation of a strategic plan. So this evening, we're presenting you with phase 1, the high-level goals for the year. The next phase of our committee work together are the action steps that go behind the goals. So I think what you're getting at is the ongoing documentation process that we very often don't get to come to committee with. We would need to do that in a staggered manner because I think it would overwhelm everyone if we tried to present you action steps on even just one priority set of goals at one time. But that's exactly what we do on our own internal documents now that will then be going into this new system that RIDE has created.
Well, but that's what I wanted to clarify. I wanted to clarify, so at what point can anyone from the public or a committee member go in, open up and look at I want to stick with the same example, look at the handbook goal and click on it, open it up and say, okay, this is being worked on here. The estimated date of completion is October 2022, and there's a check mark next to it, which means that it has already been completed and Pawtucket has achieved this goal for their year. When is that system going to be operational?
You're exactly right, Chair Doobie. Essentially, it's a project management software system. It will not roll from RIDE until 23-24. So this entire school year is not going to be.
But if it's a pilot, is it pilot and available to people?
It's not piloted available to the public yet, no.
Is it piloted available to us?
We can absolutely demo for you.
Okay, so but all of these are going to be in there.
No, they're not. Similarly, they're in the process. It's sort of like beta testing, and they're doing the same thing for school improvement team or school improvement plans. So we just we did some meetings with our principals to show them sort of what the system is going to look like, but it's not available yet for data entry. It's sort of at the dummy level. It's not real yet.
You get a visualization, but it's not accepting information.
So it won't go live until 23, 24.
So all of these goals.
We will be looking at, so our entire plan will be in there for years, for the future years for 23, 24, 24, 25. There'll be goals, and then as you get to that year, your team, based on the priorities, will be reviewing those goals as to where they are and whether they need to be revised or edited.
We'll be coming back to you with our current documents that RIDE has
Right.
for us in terms of our action steps. If you'd like those, we're happy to provide them. Ms. Finello, sorry.
So this is a new plan, this is a new ride thing. So do any of the plans like Yale Ruler that hasn't been really rolled out yet, or any of the other, I think there's about 5 different ones that have been talked about but have never rolled out. Are they included in this, or is this going to be a whole new set of reporting that's going to be required?
Sarah, let me just respond to that first. I just wanted to make a comment, and she will follow up with that. You said that there's several plans that haven't been rolled out. So we have several trained people on Yale Ruler. Yale Ruler is an initiative that we started a year ago. And so we do, with any process, you have to start it slow, right? So we're talking about curriculum rolling out too much too fast is too much. So with Yale Ruler, that has rolled out to social workers and psychologists. And so you mentioned a few initiatives that you in your comments were that we talked about them, but they're not rolled out, but that's not accurate.
Yale Ruler.
Well, let it out, so let it out as a RIDE initiatives, right, that's a RIDE initiative, but our goals have been Yale Ruler, the Boys Town, which we're now in a partnership with, the Unite Us platform, which we are rolling that out again so basically what Mrs. Manola is talking about is social emotional platforms and initiatives to address social emotional learning. Yeah. And if you would like to follow.
Just to tie that up with a bow, I'm just going to connect it for you. So what you're describing are the action steps behind those goals. So in the documentation for specific goals under the area of social emotional learning, you will see the implementation timeline for those specific projects. So let's think about action steps in terms of project management, like any organization would. Each project is large in size. So to scale these projects, you have to have an implementation timeline. Some of the implementation timelines exceed multiple and go over many years because of the funding and how that process is intended by the grantor who gives us those funds. Yale Ruler was one of those projects. When we were awarded the opioid funds from the Department of Education, we knew year one of implementation would only affect the staff that Dr. McWilliams mentioned, psychologists, social workers, building principals who have taken that training. It's a 4-hour training over the course of the school year. The next phase of implementation for the current school year will be shared broadly, as you heard tonight, as part of the goal. Those training modules are virtual. It's not an in-person training. So now the platform will be open to all teachers this year to participate in 4 hours of training on designated PD days. We bring that to the PD committee as a proposal.
Just more reporting.
So unfortunately, it's a lot of information sharing because there are so many projects being managed. It's the nature of the process for the district as well as the schools.
Right. If our students need these services, then our staff need the help.
Absolutely. Training time, I think everyone would agree, is something we just don't have enough of.
So overall, on the whole, so if these are future, so if these are all future goals, as the substance exists behind the presentation as it was
So I think,
brought up earlier.
so are you referring to the fact when you look at a goal, is this, so let's just say, for an example, strong foundation, student reading and math proficiency. So if we were going to come before you and we were going to talk about that goal, we would be actually bringing the end of year, the iReady math and reading data, right? So that would be a perfect example of data behind that goal.
Sorry.
I don't know. So are we bringing last year's math and reading numbers?
So we're gonna start a new year, right? So what would happen is, we're expecting to improve reading and math proficiency. Our assessment data for RICAS will be coming out in the fall. So we'll be looking at where we stand for the RICAS when we get that data in the fall. And also, when we start school in a few weeks, we'll have a baseline data of iReady for the new year. And so what happens is, at the end of the year, if you remember, at the end of the year, last May, we did a presentation and we actually put out the data. So I think what I'm hearing is that there's maybe a misunderstanding when you bring forth broad goals that you're going to work on, that the data, you're looking for the details behind that, maybe how it's going to happen and what data is going to support it. But at the end of the school year is when you're going to if you recall, last March, each one of those goals were identified and how we met those goals.
Okay.
So essentially, this entire, every bullet point here, at the end of this year, we'll have a check mark next to it.
Every bullet point will
This
have
is
progress.
2022 to 2023.
This is 22, this is this coming school year,
Yes,
2022
so-
to 23.
So when it says expand training opportunities for issues of cultural relevance and equity for faculty and
Mhm.
various levels of staff, at the end of this year, this will be something that has been expanded.
I want to comment quickly. So what you're seeing before you are the goals for 22-23, but we're going back to committee because we now need to write the projection goals for 23-24, 24-25, and 26-27. So the nature of the strategic plan is to build on the goals that you have year to year. So what you're being presented with this evening is a build on what the goals were we had last year. That's why the committee takes time to amend the language
And
of
you
the
write
goals.
revised.
Yeah, so at the end of this year, the same process. You go through what's called a comprehensive needs analysis and a root cause assessment. Take that information, we bring that back to committee amends the next set of goals as we get closer to next year. So it may be that some of these goals have a continuation because these are not projects that are one and done. These are long-term sustainable projects that are going to carry the district forward for the duration of the strategic plan.
But as Mr. Charbonneau brought up, but this will become measurable. So when we say expand training opportunities, there will be a measurement of what does it look like from 2022 to 2023? What does it look like from 2023 to 2024? So that at the end of this year, we can say, okay, our goal was to offer 2 more training opportunities in this year. Here are the exact training opportunities that we offered. And then the next year, we're looking to add 1 or.
Yes,
Am I
you're
correct?
You will have metrics, quantitative metrics.
Okay. This isn't a voting item, I don't believe. It's an overview of district strategic goals. So if I don't see any more hands, then I will move on to approval of fiscal year 23 budget revisions.
Motion approved.
Then a motion to approve by Mr. Charbonneau is seconded by Ms. Bonolo. Mr. Charbonneau, we have this in front of us. Yes.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Melissa, update please on I see we're moving the winter's money, the 50,000 for the library. Are we spending that down?
Yeah, so I have to, so in the top sheet tonight, just to give an overview, is there was no additional revenue from the last time that we approved it on June 30th. And then we moved based on some of the things that have changed after the assignment process. We have everything moved, but I have to make one correction. The additional funding for the Winters Library, I originally thought this was for supplies equipment in the stipend, and placed it in the supplies and equipment area. I have to keep a correction to that because it was, pointed out to me that it was, the stipend was separate. So, I did go back and look at the minutes and it was voted that the 50,000 was all for books. So the stipend is just gonna come out of an other additional line to be breakage. But to date, we've spent, approximately, it's like 56 and then we got another order. So we're close to 11,000 in books. And about 9,500 in, the stipend portion, which this 50,000 is all
Wait a
for.
minute, wait a minute. 11,000, say that again? 11,000
In book
supplies
supplies, right? Book supplies of the 50, 11 of the 50.
and 9,500 in
Mhm.
stipend?
Yeah. Yep, I was told that.
How does that calculate? How does that happen?
So the hours are submitted. I was told when, it was brought to me that we had to, pay, which contractually you have to pay somebody to work outside of the school year and outside of the school day at $45,000. So the hours are being submitted.
It's been a couple of weeks.
I think the hours were started prior to, the approval. I think there was a lost bunch of books.
But I think we're talking about the stipend. So I think what I'm a little flabbergasted is at the stipend. So can you give us a breakdown of that? How does
Yeah.
that break down?
So it's $45 an hour of work.
How many?
It's $45 an hour, that's contractual.
Okay.
Mhm.
And I would assume they would show the hours that they're
They,
working.
they write out the hours every day and then it's submitted to our office.
And how many hours have they been working on this?
Well, it's been about like 5 weeks of work. So, I mean, you take a, yeah, it's
I'm
around
sorry, but I
95.
had the floor
so-
initially and you, so I'm gonna,
Sorry.
I'm gonna,
I'm sorry, Mr.
I'm
Sharp.
gonna reclaim my time this
I was
week.
doing long division, sex.
When did the school committee approve this?
So the school committee approved the 50,000, on the 28th, but the hours that I was told to pay had started previous to that because there was a group of books that were lost, so.
No, I
Right,
remember.
so they started researching to replace those books, and the hours were submitted.
How many people are involved in the research of this? What's this 9,500 represent? How many people working?
One person.
I have a problem with this. I don't know what the remedy is, but $11,000 in supplies and $9,500 in expenses to buy those $11,000? That wasn't the intent of the 50,000.
So again, like I said, I put on here that it was like the stipend and stuff because I was told. So I was told to pay the stipend because the person has to get paid to do all the research.
I understand.
No, I know, but I just wanted to let you know, the only reason I corrected it is because when I was asked what the total was spent and I gave the stipend, it was pointed out to me that it wasn't. So I did go back and look in the minutes and it did say that the full 50,000 was just for supplies and that's how it was voted in the minutes.
Melissa, can you provide us a breakdown?
Yeah, we get time
How
sheet.
many hours that they're
Yes.
working
Mhm.
to do this? Because that's an awful lot of money.
Mhm.
It's just, like I said, I have no problem if it's, it just doesn't seem like that could actually be possible since the last time we met.
Yeah, my math is coming out to, if it was 5 weeks, it was 40 hours a week.
Yeah, it's on an average. I mean, it's, the hours are submitted to me each Monday.
Okay.
So I have the total hours run. I mean, obviously, the 9,500 is about, I think it takes into account the employer taxes, the Social Security, Medicare.
Okay. I'm sorry, Ms. Grant?
I would think in this day and age too, we wouldn't just be buying books also. I know my child, uses her iPad to read and things like that we would maybe purchase Kindles that the kids could sign out or things like that. It just seems like, I think kind of like the $750,000 we're approving for supplies. I think like this, I really think we need, if this happens again, we really need some guidelines.
Mhm.
And we need something a little bit
Mhm.
more stricter in regards to, because it's a lot of money, and, it just seems outrageous.
Ms. Vanilla? I'm sorry, Ms. Grant.
So
Ms. Miller.
according to the minutes, the motion that I made was up to 50,000 for new library books, materials, and equipment for Henry J. Winters Elementary. So I had also been questioned about the librarian being paid for her services, and I asked Melissa, and she said that timesheets would be submitted, and I said, who monitored them? And I was told it's on a trust system. And so that's all the information I received. So maybe next time we'll have to put a cap on something.
Is there any other questions on the budget revision? Okay, we have, next item is approval of the purchase and release of copiers district-wide.
So the district, when, used the Rhode Island MPA, I wish Mr. Knight was here because the last time I limited it, but this time I sent it to everybody on the MPA. And there's like 12, but we did get, 5, different proposals, which were, researched, reviewed by myself. I believe Hirsch, reviewed and Paul Abbott worked closely with me because I'm not a tech person. And then, let's see, so the proposals reviewed by Paul Abbott, Hirsch, myself, the request was to purchase 31 machines. The range of ages that the machines that we're replacing are from 2008 through, there's one machine from 2015, but they're mainly 2008 and 2010 and 11. The top 3 vendors that submitted proposals of the 5, the top 3 were Core Business, Innovax, and Toshiba Business Solutions. After reviewing the cost of the equipment, the specifications, and copy costs, we'd like to recommend a purchase from Innovax located in Lincoln, Rhode Island. In addition, due to the extremely competitive pricing, the complete installation within 30 days, we are recommending purchasing a total of 32 shop copiers, of which 3 machines are color and monochrome and 29 machines are monochrome. This will replace some old equipment, and also the pricing per copy is lower than the existing copy cost. The total equipment cost, if approved with Innovax, just equipment only, is $162.29, and then an additional amount for the Curtis copier costing to be determined because it's a slightly smaller. And again, they're on the MPA. These were all the proposals came from the MPA. We just wanted competitive from the MPA since there were so many. So it's a slightly smaller copier. It was brought to my attention, and I was unaware of this, that Curtis had never had a floor standing copier. They have a small, and I don't know if it's because the area is small, but we're going to ensure that they get a copier that could withstand and higher powered copier in that office, because that's the only copier usually in the school that has color. And today, back from years ago, everything was black and white. Today is a lot of times that, there is need to make color copies. Let's see. And then, so anyways, approved with Innovax with the $162.29 plus the additional smaller one. The annual service contract is separate and it's based on pricing per copy. Their copy prices are above. The plan is to purchase from the capital fund, as the school committee had already earmarked specifically 115. So if approved, the addition would be the balance of what the capital fund is, that you put it in for capital investment and improvements, if you should approve that.
Motion to award the approval of copy of purchases that, what is it, Innovex?
Yes, Innovex in Lincoln, Rhode Island.
And a motion to approve by Mrs. Charbonneau, seconded by Ms. Manolo and Mr. Larby. And as you stated, this was money that we put into capital back several months.
Actually, over a year ago,
Yeah,
and
okay.
it was 115, but again, the difference for the 160 to purchase outright would be what the capital fund is for, when you put in some of the surplus to say for future investment or improvements. So the copies are definitely needed.
Okay, thank you. And a motion, it's been seconded. Any discussion? Ms. Lucy, please take a roll call.
Ms. Manolo.
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
Ms. Grant. Mr. Larby. Mr. Marino. Ms. Doobie.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Next item is approval of independent contractor list for fiscal year 2022 to 2023. I don't know who's,
So this would be me.
okay.
I know, go ahead, Lisa, the Melissa show. Not that I like the Melissa show, but anyway. So we worked really hard on this year to update the independent contractor agreement that's been out there. And so, legal counsel, Deidre, Billy, and myself, we went back and forth, and we're still in the newness of an actual updated, independent contractor, agreement, so it's generic. So before you tonight, I have the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people who have completed it, filled it out, have all the information, and ready to go. School hasn't started yet, but these people are ready to go. What my plan is, and Billy and I are still working on this, because we've had questions about, do we get the copies of the background check? Does the nursing agency have to sign it or send the actual background check? So we're working and tweaking this document, because in the eyes of a legal counsel, everybody who, it doesn't matter who you are, we should have some sort of contract agreement, whether it be an independent contractor. And I think they get, I think people are used to being independent contractor is me, you as an independent person, but really everybody is a contractor, no matter if you're a limited liability, a corporation, just an individual sole proprietor, partnership. So we're working to tweak it. So it's a new process, and we're going through some growing pains, but this is the first list, and we're planning to bring lists before you each month so that you know that we've updated to the independent contractor where we have the updated documents. I know that Dino, who's here tonight, he's actually been sending out, getting his athletic officials to the middle school, because again, that was another thing last year where they were saying, oh my God, I got to do this, every year. So he's working on getting that. I think everybody understands that this is required. So this is new, and it will be just added kind of monthly, and we'll just update it. Once you approve it, it's done for the year. So this vendor, so for instance, we have a vendor on here that did some DJ Soul. So once that person is in our system, they're in the system for the year. Actually, this happens to be somebody else who, this is our husband's business, but he got the background check. She already has one, but this is good. So somebody else, any school, we're going to let them know that we have a DJ. And if you're doing an event, and maybe we might have 2 or 3 DJs on here, you can choose and get pricing from 2 or 3.
So just to clarify, past, because this is new for us getting this, so I'm sure there will be questions. In the past, this would show up on our vendor report. Yes.
Right. The vendors show up after they're paid.
Yeah, but in the past, this would be like kind of sometimes we're like, excuse me, why is this random thing going to Rascallion face painting or something like that?
Correct.
So essentially, these will eventually probably show up on our vendor.
You will see
list.
DJ Soul on your vendor list once they're paid. They're not.
Okay.
They can't be paid until they're passed.
So they would have shown up in the past, because we were doing this in the past. We were using these independent contractors.
Right. It was an independent contractor agreement. They would get the background checks, but it was old documents. It was paper form. I mean, even filing with the state, it's all online now.
And so you've been working with our legal counsel to come up with one system to ensure that. And so you said it's a background check.
It's a background check. It's a generic agreement. which again, we're still having growing pains. Like I said, nursing agencies, when we hire a nursing agency to do nursing services, but sometimes we use a nursing agency if we can't get a sub. In there, it says an independent contractor provides their own supplies. But when we get a nurse sub from an agency for a school nurse teacher, or they come in as a school nurse, they use our supplies. So there's some things that we're working on. But yes.
So the language can't be completely consistent with each one. There
Right.
is some
There's some
tweaking.
tweaking, so we're gonna try to figure out how to work that out, but there's liability insurance, workers' comp, if it's, and again, we used to collect this information, but now it's gonna be in a binder, there's gonna be shared vendor lists, so that way people don't have to reinvent the wheel and find different vendors if we already have them. So it's, filing with the state, independent, as an independent contractor, doing the insurances, general liability, and workers' comp if necessary, background checks, national and state.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Ms. Manolo, Ms. Grant.
Quick question. Does everybody who is looking for an independent contractor know we have preference for people and businesses from Pawtucket?
Yeah, so this list actually is gonna be made and it will have the addresses and again, we do know, we put that out there, but again, there's no law, like, we have to be careful because of the state law, right? We have preference in Pawtucket, but the state law says that we have to do competitive bidding, and so state always supersedes the local. You can be stricter than the state, but you can't be less lenient than the state. But yes, we make sure that that's clear, that we try to get to the local. As a matter of fact, we just did that with a copy of the two lowest. One was Massachusetts, one was Rhode Island, so, and Innovex was Rhode Island.
So Melissa, for vendors that we do business with, already, like nursing agencies, do you have, because we do have students who are in school already, with particular nurses, do you have cutoff dates to make sure that you get what is required and what we need?
Right, so we currently have the special ed department now working with our nursing agencies and getting us the new updated, background check and working on all that now. One of the questions that came up was the example I just said, what happens when we send someone to your school? Can we redline the pot that says you provide the supplies that were in your school? And we said, yeah, so you just put those little noted exceptions. So they're starting now with the school year, but again, the way the agreements worked before, everybody had a different agreement. We're trying to uniform it and pull it all in. So again, still growing things.
So what happens in regards to, we'll say, nursing agency? We have a child who needs a one-on-one nurse. Do we require a background check besides what the agency provides, or do we just kind of go by what the agency is providing us as a service? So meaning, like, if for a nurse to work for an agency, they're required to get a background check. So they provide that to the nursing agency. But do we, as a school district, when this particular nurse comes into our school district, do we require another one? Or is that part of our contract, that's part of the package?
So those are the things that we actually talked about this week. So we require that as long as it's within 12 months, because that's what the state law says, that you could be within 12 months. But we're trying to figure out how we have consistent agencies who have, consistent employees who still obviously, these nurses have to hold licenses and things like that. We're trying to figure out, are we having them sign an affidavit, or are we having them send a copy once and then we keep it, or do we need a copy every year? Let's think about the athletic officials out there in the whole entire state of Rhode Island. They visit 39 cities and towns. Maybe one gentleman might do, this part of the state, and they might see 5 or 6 different schools. You do have some guys that will go anywhere in the state, and they may work at all of them. We would have one background check, say, for that middle school, and we would say, you can share that with everyone. So if Jay Charbonneau was an athletic official and he went and got his background check 2 weeks ago, now all of a sudden he's scheduled to work a middle school sporting game. And this is middle school, I say, because it's not through the interscholastic league. Jay we can get from that other district his current background check as long as it's within 12 months. And also I found out when I spoke to the Attorney General's office, because there was some confusion, they kept telling, the Attorney General office kept telling people that you don't need a national background check. They were referring, I think, to Title 45, which Title 45 is a background check to work in the state, but Title 16 is a background check to work with students. So they're different. So people were calling us up and saying, they won't give me they said they only need to do a state, and why are you telling me I have to do a national? And I said, because you do. So I ended up calling the Attorney General's office, and we had a chat. So they're now aware, we have that down pat, so they're well aware of it. But we're still working on those things. This is now, I think, and I don't want to say this, in the past, obviously, we had in their agreements, the different nursing agreements, that they hired people that had appropriate checks. Okay. Mr. Shabby.
Melissa, I know it's a fluid document, but we can't have doing business as NA on here.
No, there is no NA because we hire the independent contractor as Jameson. So either you're an independent contractor and you go under your name. So NA means he doesn't have a business name. He just operates Scott Jameson. Yeah.
Understood, but there's gotta be a notation here of what Scott Jameson does in the district.
Oh, we can add,
Him
right,
as an independent contractor.
Well, we can add that column. We will. And again, this is the first one produced by the DBA is, in other words, it just so happens to be that those DBAs tell you what the service is. We can put a column to tell you what the service is. We'll change that. Absolutely. Noted. You know
Thank
what? I
you,
didn't even
Nat.
realize that. That's a
Well,
good point.
because all the rest of them happen to have what they do in their title.
Yeah,
Yes.
so the DBA that's here is really not meant for their service. It's what the name of their company is. We will add that. Thank you. That's a great idea. We're gonna add the type of service that they provide. Will do. Thanks for that catch.
Did we have a motion on the floor for this one?
Is there anything else anyone want to seize on here so that I can provide it? You think, the date, the service requested by, second?
There's a motion to approve by Ms. Charbonneau, seconded by Ms. Grant and Ms. Moreno. And as you said, this will become something that we see.
Yeah, and we'll
Update.
tweak it. And if you have any suggestions, please feel free.
The only thing I would like is, I don't know if other members think it's gonna become cumbersome, but if it's a running, as in just a line item, like these are the ones we have approved, here's the new ones. As you
Sure.
said, because one of the things you mentioned is, we might end up with 3 DJs or something like that, but I think it would be interesting so we could better see.
Absolutely, we can set
how-
it up that way.
So like I said, I don't know how long this can become, but
Yeah.
I think
We
that
can
at least
certainly,
start.
we can set it up, absolutely. Yep, so we'll make a running approved and then we'll make new ones. So we'll put new ones at the top, approvals at the bottom, and then they drop down.
Yes, thank you. Okay. There was a motion to approve, was seconded. Good. Okay. Oh,
I just wanted,
Ms. Miller.
will you find out what Scott Jameson does?
Absolutely. Does
Um,
anyone here know?
Scott Jameson.
It's one of the, it's Mary Corella. I'll look it up for you.
Okay.
Let me see.
Okay, let's do this roll call.
Ms. Manolo.
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau. Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Larby.
Yes.
Mr. Marino. Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 5-0. The next item is homeschool students 2022 to 2023.
You a list by initial and by school and by gender of those families that have submitted documentation that there will be homeschooling. And I believe it's 61 on the list, which is a big change from last year. If you remember last year, I think we had a total of 150. So yes, we did.
And how do you know there aren't more out there that just don't request?
Well,
You don't know.
yeah,
You just
yeah,
don't know.
right.
There's a state law. I mean,
Well, yeah, everybody's supposed to be in school and there is a state law, but I mean, unless someone, submits a letter and we have the documentation, that they're homeschooling, but
Somebody just keeps their kids home.
well, that would be, obviously
Oh,
we
yeah,
would expect
no.
that someone has,
But
you know.
I was just wondering
Yeah,
if
no.
there was a double check on it or,
So the
how
way.
you guys double check on it.
Right, so maybe I could have the attorney weigh in on the legal aspects of it regarding homeschooling and the requirements of what they have to do. They submit a letter of intent, it comes before the school committee, and then at the end of the year, these People will receive a letter from our office that they need to follow up with attendance records and documentation.
For every single one of these have come before us.
You don't get the letter, you're getting the list of the initials,
just the
but
list.
we have all the documentation of these families. But I think your comment was, if you have, like, say, a neighbor and you don't see the child going to school, yeah, we would
I just didn't
know
know if you
about
guys
that.
would know, or if there's a check or.
Yeah, I don't know, is there any legal way
Legally,
in that?
how does it work?
So each student who's going to be homeschooled, parent and guardian submit the homeschool plan to the district.
But what is, I mean, I don't think it would be city, but what is this, I guess what Ms. Grant is asking is, what is the state enforcement to ensure that
That they're being
students
homeschooled.
are either being homeschooled or in a school if there is a law that students need to go to school?
Essentially, the parents are required to enroll their children, and that information is shared, and it's, the process, how it's shared, frankly, I don't know what the process is in sharing, but comes to our attention that there's a student who's not attending, or not being homeschooled, the truth.
So now, what happens in the case where we have students who are home and we can't provide home teaching or someone to go out to their home during the week? Because I would think we would have some students like that, correct? That
So-
have medical.
Yeah, so those are two different things. So this is homeschooling of those parents who are taking on the responsibility for homeschooling, but I think what you're referring to is homebound instruction, and that would fall under special education. So, but that doesn't mean that the student has to be a special ed student. So say, for an example, we've had this in the past where there was a student who had an injury and they were, unable to come to school. That the special ed office does process those homebound instructions, but we would provide that, but we would have to know about it. So in other words, I think what you're getting to is enforcement of.
Well, I know they're two different things.
Right.
But I was just wondering, like, say, for example, we don't have any, especially now in this day and age, we have problems getting substitutes and things like that. What if we can't provide someone to go to a child who's homebound?
Well,
how does that get taken care of?
Yeah, I have to be honest with you, I have not run into that at this point, because when you do homebound instruction, each specific student, if they're on that homebound instruction, has a specific plan that's tied to amount of hours. It's not like a teacher's going to be in their home from 8 to 4. It would be a responsibility of a plan that's documented and written out. And they might be, like, I'm thinking back when I was principal at Carter, there was a 5th grade teacher, child broke their leg, they weren't able to come to school. So that teacher, we had a plan, we met with the family, we developed a plan, and then the teacher went out so many, afternoons a week to have instruction with the student and then also assess the student.
And we do have a school committee policy on homebound instruction. I remember it from several years back. I haven't looked at it recently, but it might delineate some of those points. Okay. Ms. Knoll?
Not totally off track, but just, so were all of these our students?
Well, I mean, obviously, I don't.
You don't know?
Well, no, I do know, because I have all the documentation, we have an entire file on every student.
Okay, so if one of our students doesn't come back the following year
We have follow-up.
and isn't on this list, do you find them?
So what happens is, at the end of the year, my administrative assistant will make contact with all these families, making sure that, and to be honest with you, the good majority of them do provide before they even get that documentation. They provide what they need to provide as far as attendance and grading, and that they met the requirements. But in what you're saying is, for those that didn't, she will follow up with them to ensure that we know, number one, are they coming back to school? So several of these, I mean, I know I spoke to some who aren't on this list because they're coming back into our school.
But what I'm saying is, okay, I'm in 5th grade.
Right.
and I just don't go to sixth grade,
So if you were on this list,
but not on this list. If I was actually.
so you're talking about someone that might be a neighbor or something that you see a child that that you think is not going to school. So then you should report it.
Yeah, I think we're, yeah, that's.
Okay, I just want to know if we tracked our kids.
Well, we track
They were
ours.
there and not, they're not there. We look for them.
So I think what Ms. Manola was asking is, do we automatically, my daughter was in fourth grade last year. Is she hasn't been declared as being homeschooled, is she automatically entered into the fifth grade class? And then on the first day of school, when that student does
There's a
not
system.
show up,
Exactly.
so she is in our system, and so she is registered as truant because she hasn't shown up. So they automatically roll up.
There is,
each grade.
yeah, unless we've received documentation that they've left the district, they've moved, and then the first few weeks of school there is, Mr. Cristino does send out to the schools a list of tracking the data of the students that haven't showed up, make sure you follow up what we call summer withdrawals. So in other words, we'd be looking at why those students haven't
And
come
they
back.
haven't moved.
And there's also a RIDE documenting system that you can look up and see if by that student's ID number, whether they've moved to another district. So I think what you're referring to, but it is also, and I don't know, what you're thinking of or a specific, situation, but there is homebound instruction, there's homeschooling, and there's also outplacement. So outplacement is, how do we know that students might be in that particular situation going to an outplacement school that has different guidelines than we have. So,
This reporting form, is this something that the state uses? Is this the state's reporting form? Like, is the way it's organized?
oh, no, this is,
Okay,
so in other words,
is there a reason that we have gender on here? Is that something that's needed?
I think last year when we talked about it, it was recommended, Bill maybe weigh in, to have initials, the school, the student, and the gender. We can remove the gender. We can remove that.
I mean, unless someone thinks that that's necessary information, it seems, but can we organize it by school next time?
Sure.
That we can see how many students from X school, I mean, I know we could just count them up.
By school,
It's
sure.
a little bit easier. Was there a motion approved? Sorry.
Motion approved.
The motion approved by Mr. Charbonneau, second by Mr. Larrabee and Mr. Nolo. Any further discussion? Ms. Lucy, please take a roll call.
Ms. Manolo. Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
Ms. Grant. Mr. Larrabee.
Yes.
Ms. Marino. Ms. Doobie.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. The next item is approval to add assistant school coach at Tolman and Shedd. Approval to add assistant soccer coach at Tolman and Shedd. The motion approved by Ms. Grant, and seconded by Mr. Marino. Is there discussion on this item? Someone all dressed up and ready to go? Are we good? What? Oh, well, we haven't voted yet. We all could be voting no. Okay, this is money, Mr. Knightwood. Yeah, okay, let's do, please take a roll call.
Ms. Manolo.
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
Ms. Grant. Mr. Larrabee.
Yes.
Mr. Marino. Ms. Doobie.
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Thank you.
Thank you now.
Thank you. Okay, approval of revised 2022 to 2023 school calendar.
So I'm bringing for you tonight a revised 22-23 calendar, and I will point out the revisions and the reasons for it. So the first revision is a consideration and recommendation to change the April vacation from the week of the 17th to the 10th. And this is due to the PSAT and the SATs being scheduled for April 18th, which would be during vacation. And I believe I sent the committee a memo of agreement that if this calendar is approved, that we would get that communication out to staff for those who may have already prearranged a vacation for the week of the 17th. So that would be the first revision. The second revision is a reduction of the school days. As you know, our students go to school 180 days, and the reduction of would be for 3 days on the dates of December 16th, March 31st, and April 7th. And the reason for that is the new Right to Read Act. I think it was about a year ago, the Right to Read Act indicated that educators had to have certain qualifications and certification for the science of reading and or structured literacy. And that act came rolled out without a understanding of how it would impact the educators and how it would be rolled out. And so the General Assembly did pass at the end of June an agreement that it would be, the days would be during the school day. And so this is to allow our staff, our educators to get the appropriate training and that will affect their certification that they need on these 3 days. And this agreement is for this school year, but it is important to note that the required amount of agreement, depending on your certification, could be up to 60 hours, which means that next calendar year and the year after, depending on where we are with the amount of people that are getting this, that need to have an awareness or the full training, it would impact those calendars in future years.
Motion approved by Mr. Larrabee, second by Ms. Mello. Mr. Mello.
So, on changing, so if we vote to change, you sent us the, information that the teachers could, that already have their vacations planned and would not be able to receive a refund on the cost, have the option of reporting to school buildings during vacation weeks, primary election days at the end of the school year, prior to June 30th, or personal days up to 4 consecutive days. So I'm not worried about the personal days, but I do have a question about the other days. What are they going to do in an empty building? And who is monitoring it?
So this would, we're going to be, the teachers would be submitting by September 16th, so we'll know who they are. And I pretty much already know who they are because they contacted me and they're curriculum to work on, or grading papers, looking at assignments, many different things.
Any further discussion? Ms. Lipsey, please take a roll call.
Ms. Manolo.
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
Ms. Grant. Mr. Larrabee.
Yes.
Mr. Marino. Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 6-0. The next item is physicians contract. Second. The motion to approve the physician's contract. That is in front of us. It's been seconded. Is this something that's come before us every year? I mean, do we always have? Mr. Charbonneu's like, yeah.
I believe so.
Okay, I was just.
And there should be a billing.
It's-
Another one dental, right?
Dental, yes. Okay, so this is,
Oh, might be slightly different.
okay. Yeah, okay. There was a motion to approve. It's been seconded. Ms. Lipsey, please take a roll call.
Ms. Manolo.
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
Ms. Grant. Mr. Larrabee.
Yes.
Mr. Marino. Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 6-0. The next item is Federal Community Schools Grant. I placed this item on the agenda because there's a federal grant, and I think it's very important that our school district applies for it. And I've heard from other members who have asked that this item be placed on the agenda. So I'd just like to hear where we are and when the deadline is and how we're ensuring that we apply to be competitive in getting this grant.
Yes, thank you. So as Chair Doobie stated, there has put out a significant amount of dollars out to states for federal funding for school community grants. In the past, we have had school community grants that were done by the AFT, and we do have three school communities, three schools that are school community schools with school resource coordinators. This particular grant that we're looking at, there's different priority areas that you can apply when you talk about federal grants. You heard the word earlier tonight that there's non-regulatory guidance. So non-regulatory guidance means that the specs that come out regarding the grant, there's different priority areas that you can apply under. And we are looking to apply under priority area 4, which means that we would be collaborating with other districts. I am meeting with the school community resource coordinators, Emily, Jen, and Candy. We've already been meeting and talking. We have a meeting scheduled tomorrow. Jody has also participated in that as well. The goal of priority 4, which is slightly different than priorities in previous years, is that there's additional funding if you partner with other LEAs, with other districts that might have an interest in applying for this grant. So it would be additional funding. Additionally, working with the state, the AFT, and then incorporating another partner, which we're hoping to do with a focus on social emotional learning. So the grant initiative came out this summer. I submitted a letter of intent, not that you needed to submit a letter of intent, but submitting a letter of intent does say to the federal government, hey, watch out for these people, they're going to be presenting something. And the letter of intent included that we were interested in partnering on a larger scale with the state and other LEAs and other partners. And that was submitted on, I believe, August 14th. The deadline is September 12th. It's a pretty comprehensive grant, but we will have a team of people that will be working on it. So the goal would be to go in with other LEAs. I won't name them at this point because they're still working with their team to determine if they want to go in with another LEA, because it is a significant amount of work. And one of the particular districts who I thought was going to go in has now said, no, they're going to withdraw. They're not even going to apply at all, not even with us, because it's federal grants all grants are significant, dot your I's, cross your T's, and accountability. So hopefully I'll know tomorrow if 2 other districts are interested. If they are not, then we'll be moving forward on our own, which has been done in the past. And we would have, of course, the AFT as our partner, and hopefully another partner regarding social emotional learning.
So do you think tomorrow is the deadline for decide? Because I mean, September 12th is right around the corner. So if those other districts are kind of not solid tomorrow.
Right. So I put out to those superintendents that I'm meeting with by tomorrow.
Okay.
What we have done on our team is develop a Google Classroom. We have all the documents and guidance in that Google Classroom shared with the team, which is the community school resource officers and the PTA leadership and my office that we're working on it. So it will be crafting time as soon as we have those answers and goals of what we want to do if we were to receive this funding.
And you said it's due on September 12th?
September 12th.
So can we add an item on the September 14th agenda just to update on whether we went it alone or whether and by then we could name the partners that we applied for this grant? And when do we find out if we get it?
We should know, according to the non-regulatory guidance, by December, and you can roll it out as early as June.
Okay, so if we get this, we will be rolling out additional community schools.
The early discussions with the team is that we would roll to a middle school.
Okay. Okay. So that, like I said, we can talk about that, I guess, if we keep in mind. Okay. So this was just this isn't a vote, unless someone wants to make a motion. Mr. Charbonneau.
Just a comment, I guess, I mean, I get going in with other LEAs if that widens the pot, but I also recognize that this committee, community schools have been central to this committee. And I want to ensure that that continues in this district with our oversight of them. And I'm concerned that when we go in for a wider grant with other LEAs, then we're gonna be dictated down as to how we run our community schools. Where if we go in with the AFT, as we have in the past years, it's the two of us, as opposed to multiple other districts weighing in. And so I want to be clear that we've developed what I believe to be a very effective community school program, and with the 3 buildings we have, if we're going to build upon that, but lose some of our ability to make the decisions, the final decisions, then I don't know that partnering with other LEAs is the way to go. I think everybody's got to keep an open mind on this to say, you know what, we've done a pretty good job with community schools in Pawtucket over the last several years, and we've expanded the program on our own before anybody else wanted to get involved or suggest a broader partnership. Sometimes less is more, is all I'm saying.
Okay, if there's no further discussion on that, we'll move on to our next item. Allocate up to $10,000 per media center for purchases. Ms.
Motion that we table this item until we can get some clarification, because I don't know what this means now.
Okay,
Or
it's Ms. Vinolo's item, so
I'll withdraw the motion. Go ahead, Ms. Vinolo.
Ms. Vinolo, this is your
You
item?
can answer.
Okay, so, we have 3 schools that have new media centers. So as with 5 schools? 5 schools, okay. Yeah, 5 schools. So with the new updated look, updated books, get rid of the old, purge out the old books and put in new books for the students. Some of the schools did not have a lot of books prior to the update, so we just want to make sure that they have a sufficient library of books for their students. So that's what that was for.
I'll make motion to approve.
Motion approved by Mr. Charbonneau, seconded by Mr. Marino.
So that's, if I can state that the librarians can work on library time.
So in other words, you're saying that this is just for materials?
Just for materials, books, materials, implements that would be involved in the media center, like my last.
We can spend money like Ms. Vinolo.
You're doing pretty
I
good.
wanted, yeah, and
I haven't reached.
Mr. Charbonneau, do you have a question?
no, I agree that 10,000, that's what I wanted to clarify. The 10,000 is for supplies for the media center. I don't know that I'm not looking for it to be as stringent as to say they have to do the research and the work during the school day. If there's a couple hours beyond the school time that we have to, pay them for, I'm fine with that. I think we've got to set some kind of cap on what we're willing to pay for a stipend for research based off the conversation we had prior. And maybe that's another agenda item for the next meeting, but I think 10,000 for supplies to stock the media centers. But if it takes the librarians longer than the time allotted in their school day, there's a cap to how much we'll reimburse. That's all I'm asking.
Okay, so just to clarify, we had this conversation before. This $50,000, it's 50,000?
It's actually 6 schools, we just counted. It's 6. It's whoever does the media libraries in the Facilities Equity Initiative. It's 6 elementaries.
Okay,
Elementary.
so are you saying that this 60,000 is gonna come out of capital?
Yes.
That money was approved, we would have to do an ESSER adjustment.
Do it in a budget transfer at a future meeting.
Okay. Okay.
Bring it to the next meeting in September.
Would you like to bring it as a budget transfer in the next meeting, Ms. Finola? We have a motion on the table.
Recommendation, Ms. CFO. Yeah, I mean, we can go and look and see. We're still waiting to hear if Riot's paying for already, so if we confirm that, we can pull it from there.
Okay.
Um,
Is there an interest in taking a motion here? Is there an interest in tabling this? Are we? Ms. Grant?
I don't think we really determined what the rules around this would be. And I think we need to have something solid in place. You know, is the $10,000 just for supplies? And then beyond that, we'll pay up to 2 hours a day? Or is this for, you know, I think we need to be a little bit more specific because, you know, I think we need to make sure that we kind of have this, kind of have our ducks in a row in regards to it.
So how are we going to make a determination on what's required?
So maybe
Mhm.
With a stipend cap.
Okay.
And am I correct that some of the furniture for these media centers that actually puts into is not coming in for?
Correct,
That-
the
furniture.
Yeah, the fees are limited in November.
Okay.
Could I ask a question, please?
Yes, Ms. Moore.
And I apologize if I'm out of line, but, so the schools have monies each year, the building administrators have money each year, and there's always library money or classroom money, and, you know, phys ed money. I don't know when they place those order or how they select it, why wouldn't we just add it to their budgets as we typically do?
Mhm.
And it's earmarked for that library, I just didn't, again, I apologize if I'm stepping out, I'm just, you know, because every one of the schools have budgets and they buy, you know, certain, you know, and I don't know, because I don't know how each principal runs their building. Lisa, you were principal before. What do you do when your gym person, when does your gym person, what do they tell you what they need and you place the order? Yes. Okay. Yeah, yes. That was hard, thank you. Right, I think, right, so yes, I guess, well, yes.
Mr. Charbonnet?
Yeah, no, Mr. Vine, that seems like the way to go.
Right.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. I like that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Because then it's just, they take care of the time, they
Right.
take
Put it in
care
their
of.
budgets and do it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So is there a motion to approve? It was seconded, Dr. Glass?
I was just gonna say,
So we're talking about incorporating the $10,000 per school that had the facilities grant, which is 6 of them, into the line item for the media library centers for those schools. That doesn't address the stipend for staff if they're going to use time above and beyond the school.
But
day.
I
That's
think
right.
what we decided is that, I think, and what I got from what Melissa is saying is, how do they do it now? How do they pick their books now with the budget
They might
that
not
they
have
have
10,000,
every year?
Right,
They
now
can
maybe
just kind of build
more
it
set.
slowly and have that money in there
Okay,
for that.
okay.
As a media center, I mean, it doesn't have to necessarily be all books, right? We can do Kindles or
Right,
laptops.
excellent. Excellent, okay. So there's been,
Could be handbags, chairs, you know, things like that.
Ms. Liz, please take a roll call.
Ms. Finola?
Yeah.
Mr. Charbonnet?
Yes.
Ms. Grant?
Yes.
Mr. Larrabee?
Yes.
Mr. Marina?
Yes.
Ms. Susie?
Yes, the motion carries 6-0. Okay, handicap accessible van for special education department. Mr. Silva,
How you doing?
good.
Tonight I'm seeking approval for a handicap accessible van for the special education department. We reached out to companies on the MPA for a quote, and we received one from Tasker Ford for a 2023 Ford Transit, upfitted with a rear wheelchair lift, plus extra seating for 4 passengers, and that's plus the driver and passenger. So they'd be able to do the wheelchair lift, and we would have 4 students that would also be able to go for a total of $76,637.30, which would come out of capital. The recommended action is for the school committee to accept Task Force MPA quote for the 2023 Ford Transit Handicap Accessible Van.
The motion is approved by Ms. Grant, seconded by Ms. Bonolo and Mr. Marino. And just to clarify, once again, this is like the copiers, we put money.
We earmarked, believe it or not, we earmarked $100,000 in that.
Oh, wonderful.
Under the 76,000.
Good. Okay, great. Because I was remembering that from a previous meeting that we put this money aside for this. Yes, Ms. Bonolo.
So I have a question, why only one handicap chair in there? Why only room for one?
That's what they could fit in there, because this is being built from the ground up.
Mhm.
And I asked for, because this special education department, when I talked to Mark, he wanted room for extra seating for students also.
Mhm.
I think if you have to have a second,
Okay, next line.
if you have to have a second wheelchair, I think it would be the next size vehicle, which
Yes.
would require a
Yes.
chauffeur's license, a
Mhm.
special license to drive. So they had said that you could only fit one wheelchair before you go up to that next level.
And just to clarify, from the previous discussion that we had about this came out of the special education subcommittee. And also, we explored how we use vans currently in the district. We have a van that we currently use in the district. This would be a second van for us to use for all students that would also be able to be used for any students who might need a wheelchair lift. Mr. Charbonneau?
Chris, just a couple, you mentioned a rear,
Yes, it's a rear lift.
so is the mechanism to lock the wheelchair in the rear of the van?
Yes, it's, I sent some schematics, it is in the rear of the van.
Yeah, there's a picture.
So we have, I wonder on the, why we would put a student that's in a wheelchair in the rear of the van and have everybody else in the van, the 5 passengers and the driver, sitting in front of them with their backs to the student in the wheelchair.
There's not.
There's 2 seats on the side of the wheelchair.
Did I not get a,
Go back one more page.
oh. Okay. Where am I seeing?
To the right of the wheelchair wheel.
Yeah,
This is the wheelchair, these are the 2 seats. These are the 2 seats.
okay,
Inside.
okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, there's been a motion to approve, it's been seconded. I thank you for the work, and thank you, Ms. Grant. I'm sure the van will be appreciated throughout the entire district and also by all of our students. Ms. West, is it okay?
Ms. Bonolo. Mr. Charbonneau.
Yes.
Ms. Grant.
Yes.
Mr. Larby.
Yes.
Mr. Marino. Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item is Agnes Little and Henry J. Winters, Office of Highway Safety MOU. Sorry, I'll echo that. The motion to approve by Mr. Charbonneau, seconded by Ms. Grant and Ms. Bonolo. There is a question by Ms. Bonolo.
All the people that are teaching this course, do they have their BCI checked?
Well, it's the Department of Safety and
Oh,
because they have
doesn't
because they have an MOU with us, so we're happy.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I wonder, is it on it's on the agenda oh, it does. Okay.
it says MOU,
Okay.
yeah.
I was just wondering if we had left it open, it could be open to other schools.
Well, I guess we'd have to amend the MOU if we're gonna do that. But right now it's,
That's fine. That's fine. These are the 2 schools that have expressed interest, so.
Okay. The MOU looks like it is, you fill in the name of the elementary school. So in other words, if this were going to be expanded, I would assume we would have to bring it back to list the other schools with the same MOU. Okay, thank you. We're approving 2 schools. Okay. There was a motion to approve, was seconded. Let's please take a roll call.
Ms. Manolo,
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau,
Yes.
Ms. Grant,
Yes.
Mr. Larby,
Yes.
Mr. Marino,
Yes.
Ms. Doobie.
Yes, the motion carries 6-0. Mr. Larby, take us out of new business discussion and action items. We have school visitation and volunteer policy, school committee policy KI.
So the policy subcommittee wanted to bring forth to you all today for discussing policy KI, school visitation and volunteer policy. In our discussion, it was brought forth to us as our policy currently states, it only requires a BCI check, which is a local check that could be done either at the local police station here in Pawtucket or at the Attorney General's office. What that does not do is do a comprehensive check on a national level. So we began to have a discussion on whether or not our volunteer policy should require all volunteers to have the federal national background check. So part of this discussion and the confliction of it is we understand that volunteers inside schools play a pivotal role. It also encourages parent involvement. And if we was to move to a federal background check, it adds more layers and may make it less accessible for some of our community members to volunteer. Some of those additional layers are the price for the federal background check, which is, I believe, $40. The regular BCI check is only $5. Before we felt like we couldn't make that decision and wanted to bring it forth to everybody for discussion.
So, yeah, and I already was looking at this, and I know that all of the chaperones, we haven't had field trips really that much recently, but all of the chaperones that we have for our field trips, who are parents who might, sign up to just chaperone one field trip, do have to have a BCI check to do that. And it's usually, I know sometimes PTOs might kind of run like little drives, try to get people their background checks, but it is very easy to just go to the Pawtucket Police Department or City Hall, maybe, I don't know where they go, but
Police department.
Police Department, and get that for $5. We're putting that on that. And am I correct that a BCI check that they're running at the Pawtucket, that's for what does that cover?
It's not a national check.
I know, but what does it cover?
State of Rhode Island.
It covers the state of Rhode Island, anything that happened in the state of Rhode Island. Okay. So.
And you do it annually,
Yes.
required annually.
Mhm. So I'm not in favor of expanding that currently beyond the state. I just think it's a really big burden to put on our families unless we're going to find a money stream to start paying for these. And can they still do them at the Pawtucket Police Department?
The Attorney General's office for,
So they have to go to Providence to complete it? They have to go- Oh my
yeah,
God.
they have to go over the place.
So they have to go to Cranston to complete it, and they have to pay $40. And am I correct that the current one, because I think I've seen them before sent home, that you don't even have to go, that they can be collected and handed in? So so a bunch of parents can sign it, and the clerk can then collect them and then hand them over to get that done. Okay, but that couldn't happen with national. Okay.
With national, I believe your fingerprints have to be taken.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, but I don't know if other people want to talk about it or add anything. This isn't up, there isn't currently anything changed in this. I think that this was brought to us, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the original purpose of this was, I believe, there was a couple who moved into our district who's very interested in volunteering, but they are new residents of Rhode Island, and therefore have no history in Rhode Island. So their background check here would come up clean, but not necessarily include where they just arrived from.
Mr. Charbonneau?
Yeah, I don't know that it's gotta be a one size fits all here with this policy, and because I think we talk about a volunteer who's gonna be in a school building with our teachers, our administrators, and then we look at some of our, we have trips that go overseas, we have trips that go away for 2, 3, 4 nights. So I would be supportive of, if they're working in the school during a school day, $5 BCI check's fine with me. But if they're looking to volunteer for a field trip that requires an overnight stay, I want a national background check done, and whether that means we pay the $40 or not is fine with me. But we have a couple of different scenarios where we would potentially want a background check on volunteers.
Yeah, I think, Mr. Charbonneau, I think what you've read is really a great idea that I would definitely support. And I think that if we were going to return to this policy, only looking at how it's drafted here, it would spell out a difference between a volunteer who is working with students during the day, and a volunteer, someone who is with our students on any overnight trip, which I think we have had several come before us. And so I think that would need to be a volunteer guest and overnight volunteer or something. Ms. Grant?
I think over the past many years, we've worked very hard to keep our students and our teachers and staff safe inside the school. And I think we're doing a disservice to our district by not doing the national BCI. I understand there's, maybe a money situation or a ride situation, maybe, I don't know, maybe if we didn't have enough volunteers, maybe the particular school could pay for it and help out the parent. But I think, we worked so hard in regards to vestibules and just different things. And for us to, I don't want to say be negligent, but to just be very willing to let, someone come right into our school without doing a broader background check. And I just think we, to let them into our school, I think, hopefully, the chances of something like this happening would probably be very low. But do we want to take that chance?
To the community, but it's really convenient. But then weighing out the, as Mrs. Grant just pointed out, how we've invested so much in safety. So I do think that you can look at this from a couple of different perspectives, as Mr. Charbonneau said, maybe a tiered approach to a volunteer policy, such that perhaps in the example that Mr. Labrie mentioned about people that moved from out of state, maybe if they have not resided in Rhode Island for the previous year, and they're going to come and volunteer, then that would require a one-time initial national background check. I think that might be, something to think about. The other thing is, it was mentioned about field trips, but it actually goes further than that, because in a school, if someone's coming in to read to a student or work in the classroom, they're being monitored by the classroom teacher. However, if you want a field trip, and when I was a principal, and you divide the students up by the chaperones, those chaperones might be taking those students off to a ride or something, by themselves, so they're unmonitored. So I do think that in my professional opinion and personal opinion, you need a tiered approach to look at a policy that addresses unmonitored and monitored, and residing previously out of state, as to you living here for 20-something years, and it's gonna come up on a Rhode Island background check if there was an issue, if you're a resident of Rhode Island. That's just one.
Okay, Ms. Fenella?
So I'll put a little monkey in the middle. Anybody here have a BCI check? Because politicians are not required.
Well, but, so,
But they're in our schools.
Ms. Vanillo, so that's under guest policy, so we are never unsupervised, so as it says, the guest policy spells out that a guest is an individual who comes, is not a regular volunteer, but has legitimate business in the school. The guest will never be unsupervised and will be accompanied by school personnel at all times during the visit. So I don't think any school committee members are just walking around. Parental guests will at all times be accompanied. That's why if, back to school night, we have parents in our buildings, but they don't need to have BCI checks. Ms. Grant and then Ms. Marino?
I guess I just want to check one thing, because I don't know how it works. So say I am a resident of Rhode Island, but I commit a crime in Massachusetts. So is that on a Massachusetts BCI, or is that on a Rhode Island BCI? Massachusetts. So even if I did live in Rhode Island, it wouldn't show. So I could live here for 50 years, but someone might not know that I had gone to jail, or you might not know that I've gone to jail for, kidnapping someone or something,
Okay, Mr. Marino?
We have a few things on the slide now. We have also feedback, so I would like to make a motion to send this to policy for further review.
And motion, Ms. Marino, to send to policy now that we've given our feedback, and Mr. Charbonneau has seconded. Any discussion on that? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Next, school committee policy, first class personnel selection of coaches.
Yes, so
To be familiar.
before you today is for first facets, policy GCB, selection of coaches. The change in this policy was to add national background check to as a requirement for the selection of coaches.
Second.
Motion approved by Ms. Vanello, seconded by Mr. Charbonneau. Just a clarification, does the national cover local, or are they two different things?
No, the national will also.
So they need both national and local? I mean.
I can speak to that a little bit. I do a lot of hiring at my job, so we require national fingerprints. When you go to the Attorney General's office for your fingerprints, you do automatically get a local BCI as well. So they hand you, they send the national fingerprints directly to the organization or the district, and then leave that individual with a paper copy of the BCI, so they can come deliver the copy of the BCI while the fingerprints will be sent automatically.
Okay. Excellent, thank you. That answered my question. Ms. Vanello.
gonna be paying for the national? Would it be the coaches? Okay.
Ms. Lindsay, please take a roll call.
Ms. Nola?
Yes.
Mr. Charbonneau?
Yes.
Ms. Grant? Mr. Larrabee?
Yes.
Mr. Marino? Ms. Doobie?
Yes. Motion on first passage carries 6-0, and unless Mr. Larrabee disagrees, I'd like to place second passage of this on our next agenda, our regular meeting, please. Okay, we are on to discussion items. We have monthly vendor reports, monthly overtime reports, and monthly revenue reports for July. Yep, Mr. Charbonneau.
The amount that we pay to feed members of RIAS every year, I see it's on the, but it's lumped in with administrative dues and,
Yeah, I have to, let me go back, because I actually just noticed that we had, so like the Riasco dues, the principal dues, they all get lumped together because Munis only takes so many characters in the name of the vendor. So if it'd be okay tomorrow, I'll take that area and I will break it out by the different, I have it.
yeah, I'm just curious, and maybe maybe the RIAS
Right.
is a conversation for a different meeting.
Right, so you're talking about like the Rhode Island Association of School Committees, Rhode Island Association of School Principals, Rhode Island Association of Superintendents.
I'm only interested in the Rhode Island Association of School Committees, what we pay to be.
$10,000.
It's the same it's been since 2010.
Yeah,
Yeah.
213.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get the number, I'll email it to you tomorrow morning, but it's about, yeah, maybe it's 10, 13.
Thank you.
It is probably right, because you actually get the invoice, right?
Yes. Mr. Vanello? Yeah. Ms. Vanello, do you have a question? Just a sidebar, okay. I think we're done with our discussions. Motion adjourned by Ms. Grant, seconded by Mr. Marino.
Aye.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries